Intricate Expanse says, Sir, how does it feel to be a genre-breaking hero that refuses to be pigeonholed into modern society's neat little behavioral boxes? Oh my God, they really meant that. I don't like this question. It feels great though.
Lil Nas X has created an impressive and unique career for himself over the past few years. With the release of his debut album, Montero, Lil Nas has proved to be more than just a one-hit wonder. The album was both a critical and commercial success. Despite it being composed of many upbeat, confident songs celebrating his rise to fame, Lil Nas gets vulnerable on the album too, discussing topics like falling in love, loneliness, and clandestine gay relationships. Lil Nas is one of few openly gay rappers, and one of the few who have subverted a typically hypermasculine genre of music on such a massive scale. Male rappers often use their music to display what they consider to be masculinity. This masculinity often manifests itself musically in lyrics about mistreating women, fighting, and engaging in other forms of violence. Often this is referred to as toxic masculinity because it creates the narrative that being masculine requires one to be aggressive, emotionally unavailable, and assert dominance wherever and however possible. Because of this, rap music often enforces misogyny and implies that anything associated with women or femininity is lesser than. As one can imagine, this has created a culture of homophobia within rap music, reinforced by falsely always equating homosexuality with femininity. Rap greats like DMX, Eminem, and NWA have all included numerous homophobic lyrics in their music. Though some rappers have been able to successfully make music that shows a more vulnerable side, it wasn't without creating a foundation for their career seen as more respectable in the rap game. Rappers like J. Cole and Drake have been ridiculed for making songs that show even slight consideration for women's feelings and aren't 100% packed with the bravado many male rappers associate with masculinity. The idea of what's considered gay or feminine in rap is honestly ridiculous. Drake has literally been called gay for being from Canada and because his real name is Aubrey, two things that are outside of his control and don't at all indicate sexuality. Logic was essentially laughed out of hip-hop after releasing 1-800-273-8255, a song about suicide prevention. The song was meant to destigmatize reaching out for help regarding mental health. This ignorant behavior can be seen amongst rappers themselves as well as their fans, who range from impressionable children to fully grown adults. Though they may seem like harmless internet jokes, music is a medium through which many people form identities and are socialized to treat others a certain way. The influence of toxic masculinity in hip-hop culture has created an unwillingness in many young men to show even the slightest bit of vulnerability for fear of being ridiculed, seen as less masculine, and worst of all, being thought of as gay. Homophobia is one of the most pervasive issues in hip-hop culture. Kanye West has spoken about this, saying in an interview, the exact opposite word of hip-hop is gay. West explained that gay men aren't welcomed in hip-hop culture, as homosexuality is seen as the very antithesis of hip-hop. He said that growing up, being called gay simply for being different led him to have some internalized homophobia for fear of being seen as gay and then being treated terribly for it.
By the time I was through high school, like anybody that was gay, I was like, yo, get away from me. And really, like Tupac said, started hanging with the thugs, and you look up, and all my friends were like really thugged out. And it's kind of like I was racing to try to find that constant masculine role model right there, to the point where it's like I would really discriminate.
This does, however, still have harmful effects, so it isn't excusable to be complicit in a toxic culture just to avoid being an outright victim of it. West also said, everyone in hip-hop discriminates against gay people. To me, that's one of the standards of hip-hop. He called for his fellow rappers to do better, as many of them condemned racism in their music, but were completely fine with being homophobic. Kanye West made this statement in 2005, and honestly, not much has changed since. Over the years, Kanye himself has faced accusations of being gay for things as small as wearing pink polo shirts and working with openly gay fashion designers. Homophobia is still alive and well in hip-hop, with artists like DaBaby and Boosie still feeling comfortable enough to publicly espouse homophobic ideals. Many rappers use the F slur in their lyrics and everyday speech, using the word as a weapon to emasculate their adversaries. In an interview, T-Pain revealed that many rappers didn't want to collaborate with Frank Ocean because of his sexuality, citing this as a reason he believed hip-hop was still homophobic. In a community where adultery, violence, and preying on women is glorified, or accepted at the very least, somehow the worst thing a man can be is gay. Overwhelmingly, male cishet rappers are silent when it comes to LGBTQ+ issues. Of course, they shouldn't be the primary voices in this space, but they should be responsible for holding their community accountable when it comes to perpetuating homophobia. Very few rappers speak up, and those who do risk being called gay for it, as if one can't have empathy for a community that they aren't part of. In 2016, Kid Cudi was one of the few rappers to openly offer his condolences following the Pulse nightclub shooting. He called the act what it was, a hate crime, and urged those who disagree to unfollow him. Incidentally, Kanye West was silent about the issue. When male rappers do try to tear down the rigid construct of masculinity, they're ridiculed for it. Just a couple months after the Pulse massacre, the internet was up in arms over the fact that Young Thug wore a dress on the cover for his latest mixtape. The rapper has been open about his belief that gender is a construct and said he's worn dresses and skirts even before fame. For wearing a dress, Young Thug was immediately met with backlash, and many called the rapper gay. Clothing has zero indication of gender or sexuality, but many believe wearing traditionally feminine clothing must mean that a man is gay or effeminate. Many fans claim they lost respect for Young Thug over his choice of clothing. In 2019, Young Thug addressed the homophobic criticism in a radio interview. He acknowledged how ridiculous it was that people were calling him gay over a dress, and he claimed that he was the straightest man in the world. Young Thug has since said that he identifies as neither gay nor straight. In that same interview, Young Thug was questioned about a comment he made saying he felt Lil Nas X shouldn't have come out publicly, which I'll come back to later. At the time of Young Thug's interview, Lil Nas X was taking the world by storm with his smash hit Old Town Road. The song went #1 even ahead of artists like Taylor Swift and broke a streaming record previously held by Drake. The song was a favorite among children, and quickly after its release it became a viral phenomenon. The song's success was heightened by TikTok, as well as artists like Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus supporting the song on social media. The record won Grammys, Billboard Awards, and was certified diamond. It shot Lil Nas X, a Georgia teen whose real name was Montero Hill, into superstardom as he became the latest viral sensation. At first, Lil Nas X had been relatively quiet about his personal life and preferred to soak up the success of his hit song without creating any controversy. However, that changed when he came out in June 2019, first to his family and then to the entire world. On the last day of Pride Month, Lil Nas referred fans to lyrics from his song Closure, thinking that they had made it pretty obvious he was gay. The album cover for his EP 7 also contained an illuminated rainbow. Lil Nas expressed awareness that some so-called fans would abandon him because of his sexuality. However, he felt it was important representation to come out at the height of his success, showing that a black gay man could succeed in hip-hop. The move also served as an inspiration to other struggling closeted fans, something Lil Nas himself could sympathize with. Lil Nas X expressed fear that his sexuality would become the most prominent part of how people viewed him, which is a valid concern many people have after coming out. He said early on he would like tweets of fans complimenting him for not throwing his gayness in everyone's faces. As he came more to terms with his sexuality, he realized that sentiment was a microaggression rather than a compliment. After coming out, Lil Nas X now faced the challenge of navigating hip-hop as a gay man. Though many were supportive, he of course faced criticism and homophobia for coming out, especially in an arena as toxic as hip-hop. Here is where I want to bring up the Young Thug interview again. Young Thug was asked about a comment he'd made on No Jumper, where he said he'd wished Lil Nas X hadn't come out publicly. Young Thug elaborated on his comment by saying he felt Lil Nas was too young to handle the homophobia that he'd faced from the hip-hop community. Young Thug had said that he'd been on the receiving end of homophobia from the hip-hop community in his mid-20s when he'd been more equipped to handle it, especially in the public eye, than he felt a 19-year-old would be able to.
I mean, I got gay people around me that's always around me. I don't judge. But I don't know if he's a kid, so I don't know if he's gonna be able to take what come. I'm the first person I'm the first rapper that they kind of like came at hard with this. They came at like Michael Jackson and Prince, but I'm talking about hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the first person that ever came to this. I know how strong I had to be. Like, you know how many times I done spaz, how many times I wanted to spaz, and it's like, I don't know if he can be able to do it. He's still a teenager. So it's like, that's the only thing I was like, I don't think he should have did it because I don't know. But by me just seeing everything, the way he's taking it, the way everything is, he don't give a fuck.
Lil Nas X is one of the most prominent male hip-hop artists to come out since Tyler, the Creator in 2015. Tyler had jokingly tweeted that he tried to come out and no one had cared. Some of the lyrics on a leaked album, as well as Flower Boy, had alluded to the fact, and he'd said in a Larry King interview that rappers' sexuality shouldn't matter. Some fans grappled with the announcement, as Tyler had been criticized for glaringly homophobic lyrics and for using the F slur on stage. Did announcing he was part of the LGBTQ community suddenly excuse him from contributing to homophobic hip-hop culture? Tyler himself claimed he wasn't homophobic and that his friends knew he was gay, addressing accusations that he was lying about the whole thing. Regardless, Lil Nas X praised Tyler along with Frank Ocean for paving the way for queer black men in hip-hop and R&B. Lil Nas X was quickly embraced by the LGBTQ+ community as a musical icon, and many fans tweeted their congratulations and support. It was nothing short of a power move to have the eyes of the hip-hop world on him and then come out as a gay man. Both unfortunately and predictably, Lil Nas X coming out wasn't met warmly by everyone. He said it was to be expected, as being gay still wasn't accepted in the hip-hop community. Lil Nas X revealed that very shortly after coming out, he received backlash. Some fans said they'd no longer listen to his music or allow their children to listen to it. Despite this backlash, Lil Nas said he was glad to open doors for people and felt that coming out was part of being authentic to himself. Though pop culture as a whole was quickly shifting to become more accepting, hip-hop moved at a much slower pace. In the late 2010s alone, Nicki Minaj had upset fans for using a gay slur on her album, and the Migos had rapped multiple homophobic lyrics. And who can forget Katy Perry's messy SNL performance that had allegedly been ruined by the Migos refusing to appear on stage next to drag queens? Hip-hop was still a pretty conservative culture, despite the strides Gen Z was making in accepting the LGBTQ+ community. In 2016, it was found that only 48% of 13 to 20-year-olds identified as heterosexual, compared to 65% of the generation before. Moving forward, Lil Nas X began to incorporate his sexuality into his music more. It wasn't in a gimmicky way, but much in the way that most musicians talk about relationships. Lil Nas X's music would inherently be devoid of one of the pillars of hip-hop, talking about how many women he'd gotten with. His music didn't shy away from relationships, but he made sure in his lyrics to emphasize that he wasn't talking about women. Lil Nas felt that because of his sexuality, he would have to fight harder for a place in the hip-hop community. On Twitter, he revealed he felt many male rappers didn't want to collaborate with him because he was gay. Largely because of this, his debut album would be absent of rap features from any black male artists. The album did, however, have rap features from Doja Cat, Megan Thee Stallion, and Jack Harlow. Kid Cudi spoke up in favor of Lil Nas X, saying he felt hopeful that Lil Nas would tear down the homophobic cloud that hung over hip-hop. Kid Cudi said that he would collaborate with him in the future, and was proud Lil Nas X was breaking barriers despite making others uncomfortable. Speaking of making others uncomfortable, in 2021, Lil Nas X released Call Me By Your Name, the lead single off his debut album. The title called back to the 2018 gay romance drama starring Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet. The song held a similar theme of frustration at keeping a gay relationship secret just because it wouldn't be socially accepted. The song contained explicitly homosexual lyrics that left no doubt that it was about a gay romance. The music video became one of the hottest topics that spring because of its blasphemous references to Christianity. Who else among us is brave enough to slide down to hell on a stripper pole purely with the intent of giving Satan a lap dance? The scene was a finger to Christians who believed all gays were condemned to burn in hell. In Lil Nas's world, that wasn't much of a punishment. Call Me By Your Name was also a love letter to Lil Nas's teenage self, confronting the fears he had regarding facing his sexuality. Aside from its allusions to Christianity, the video was campy, creative, and fun. Nas played multiple roles, from the serpent in the Garden of Eden to a Greek hero to Marie Antoinette figure. His costumes ran the gamut from bodysuits to heels to dresses, unabashedly wearing more traditionally feminine clothing. The music video resonated with many of Lil Nas's queer fans, as many had also had Christianity weaponized against them. In Lil Nas X's version of Eden, It was perfectly acceptable for a man to sport long hair, press-on nails, and corsets, as the rigid confines of gender didn't exist. His version of a hero wears a pink wig and loincloth, complete with diamond earrings. Just when we think he's going to atone for the sin of homosexuality and ascend to heaven, Lil Nas X sports long red braids and thigh-high boots and slides down a pole to seduce the devil himself. In the video, Lil Nas embraces both his sexuality and a side of himself that's more feminine, both of which are taboo in rap culture. As one can imagine, the video was controversial and upset Christians, homophobes, and Christian homophobes. In response to the backlash, Lil Nas responded by saying, "I spent my entire teenage years hating myself because of the shit y'all preach when happened to me because I was gay. So I hope you're mad, stay mad, and feel the same anger you teach us to have towards ourselves." Shortly after Montero's release, Lil Nas said he was chased down by a man yelling and cursing at him because of the video. Lil Nas X has also said multiple times that he doesn't feel comfortable directly speaking about homophobia or calling out homophobes in the music industry because it could put him in an unsafe situation. Despite the dangers of being an openly gay artist, Lil Nas X expressed that he had no intention of hiding himself to fit into a mold. Gone was his desire to be an acceptable gay artist, meaning the type that was out but didn't speak often about their sexuality or make a big deal out of it. Lil Nas decided he would be authentically himself, visible in his fashion, his music, and the topics he did cover in interviews. He quickly leaned into being a gay icon, self-identifying as a barb, and talking about dating men. His red carpet style became more flamboyant, with him wearing fun outfits like this bright pink Versace look and this lavender suit dress for the VMAs. His next single, Industry Baby, included himself and other male dancers naked in a prison shower. The video leaned into the taboo but very real prevalence of homosexual behavior in male prisons. The music video seemed to embrace and reclaim this, as well as the existence of effeminate gay black men. Lil Nas X turned a place usually associated with male emasculation into a place where he's at his most secure and most powerful. Though this may not be the reality, it is the reality of the world Lil Nas creates and can momentarily invite his audience into. Yet again, this was something that was unseen before in hip-hop. On the music video, a lot of the comments are complimentary of Lil Nas X, saying the video is something that wouldn't have been seen in prior generations. He was also praised for staying true to himself, as well as for the genuinely creative song lyrics and production. It was clear that Lil Nas X wasn't using his sexuality as a gimmick or a distraction, because he was a truly talented, innovative artist. Jack Harlow, who featured on the song, defended Lil Nas X from homophobic detractors in the hip-hop community. He praised him for enduring the hate he received, as it meant that the next gay rapper after Lil Nas might have it a little bit easier. Harlow also said that some of the negative reactions to the music video proved progress still needed to be made in terms of accepting gay artists. He said that there were people who were disappointed to see him working with Lil Nas X just because he was gay, but he had nothing but respect for Lil Nas as a creative and as a person. Montero proved to be a success, with 5 songs charting on the Billboard Hot 100. As promotion for the album, Lil Nas announced a fake pregnancy and donated the proceeds from his baby registry to LGBTQ+ charities. Another of the singles on Montero, That's What I Want, made it to the top 10 on Billboard. The song expressed Lil Nas' loneliness and longing for a boyfriend, and had a more pop influence, sounding like a mix between Outkast and early 2000s rock. The music video featured gay actor Billy Porter and a reference to Brokeback Mountain. His song was praised by Billboard and Rolling Stone alike, and it wasn't lost that a song about a man longing for another was top 10 in multiple countries. Aside from the rap features, Montero had features from Miley Cyrus and Elton John, both icons in the pop and LGBTQ communities. All of the features on the album were impressive for a debut, a sign that the music industry had faith in Lil Nas X and respect for his artistry. The album was nominated for a Grammy for Album of the Year. Despite the barriers Lil Nas X had broken down with Montero, it wasn't enough to vanquish homophobia for good. In the face of criticism that being gay no longer made him kid-friendly, Lil Nas said that it wasn't his job to cater to other people's children. In a performance at the BET Awards, he made out with one of his dancers, a brave display at one of hip-hop's biggest award shows. When he won Video of the Year at the 2021 VMAs, Lil Nas X thanked the gay agenda for his win. His win was part of the gay agenda, empowering many of his LGBTQ+ fans with the impact of his megastardom. Lil Nas X challenges the ideas of masculinity and manhood that many black men hold. In the black community, being gay is seen as the opposite of masculinity, conflating homosexuality with always being feminine. Lil Nas X said that he feels his presence is part of a shift in an otherwise hyper-masculine landscape. He expressed optimism that within the following decade, nothing he's done will seem as groundbreaking, as music hopefully keeps moving towards accepting gay and trans artists. Interestingly, he also pointed out that rap being so female-dominated currently helps create more acceptance of femininity in hip-hop. Lil Nas X was featured as Musician of the Year in GQ's Men of the Year issue. In the photo shoot, he embraces both his masculine and feminine sides, looking equally comfortable with both. He employs a mix of suits and dresses, pinks and blues, and diamonds and leather in his looks. The magazine gave space to a different sort of man of the year, one who challenged the traditional concept of manhood. In many of the shots, Lil Nas stands beside himself, referencing the duality between feminine and masculine. In photos where they aren't juxtaposed, Lil Nas artfully blends the two. For the first time in a while, if ever, a prominent face of rap wasn't emphasizing his masculinity as if it were a mandatory part of being a rapper. Though Lil Nas X is nowhere near the first gay rapper, it's still a massive accomplishment to achieve the reach he has. Very few musicians write songs about being a queer black person, and even fewer are able to make those songs into consecutive hits. Lil Nas being openly gay unfortunately won't end homophobia, but it does help to normalize queerness, especially in hip-hop. He stands on the shoulders of other artists like Mickey Blanco, Kevin Abstract, and Big Freedia, who have all been written off by many just because of their queerness. Lil Nas' success has inspired a wave of black queer artists to be more open about their sexuality, for example, using pronouns in their music that indicate their queerness. Lil Nas X has been able to push a different interpretation of masculinity to the forefronts of pop and hip-hop, a welcome change of pace from the often violent, toxic masculinity presented by the media. He's also been able to empower many young queer people who previously felt invisible or as if they couldn't publicly own their identities. Lil Nas X has redefined what a black male artist can be, no matter how mad it makes others. Hypermasculinity and homophobia are diseases, especially within black and hip-hop communities, and Lil Nas X is doing an impressive job of fighting against them. His lyrics and music videos turn harmful gay innuendos on their head, showing that while they exist, they certainly won't be used to hold Lil Nas X back. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and since I myself do not identify as a gay black man, I'm 100% open to any criticisms you guys might have of this video because I do want to continue to learn and grow, especially if this might be something that I'll talk about again in the future. As always, let me know what you'd like to hear from me next. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!